All right. Good afternoon or good morning, everyone. My name is Nolan Duda, Client Experience Manager, at IdealTraits, of course. And welcome. I think I always forget to check which Success Spotlight episode this is, but I think it's 21. But I'm sure one of you guys will go ahead and check and quote me on that. But nonetheless, it is October. Happy Halloween Eve, I think is what that would be, right? Because I think it's on Friday. Nonetheless, hopefully you have some fun planned, whether it's with your significant other or with your children, dressing up and doing whatever you'd like to do. My girlfriend has me dressing up as something I'm unaware of yet. So I'll make sure to keep you guys tuned on that when we do November edition, I suppose. But today we've got a great guest, Mike Estlund. He's a multi-line insurance agency owner. Opened his agency in February of 2024 after 24 years in the corporate and a bunch of different leadership roles in the corporate atmosphere with Wells Fargo Home Mortgage. Lives in Gresham, Oregon. He was a virtual hiring assistant participant. So shout out to Keegan, shout out to Faith. Just hired a new employee back on October 1st. So I'm sure we're going to talk a lot about that because for majority of you that are on here today, you're looking to accomplish the same thing that Mike just accomplished just a couple of weeks ago. But in Mike's free time, he does enjoy supporting his daughter's soccer team, traveling, and then scuba diving, as well as golfing, something that me and Mike have in common. So, Mike, I really appreciate you joining the Success Spotlight program, taking the time both yesterday for our prep meeting and then, of course, today. So, Mike, welcome to Success Spotlight. Happy you're here.
Thank you very much, Nolan. I'm looking forward to talking with you and sharing my experience with IdealTraits.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that this is actually, again, the 21st, I believe, Success Spotlight. This is the first one. Is my office has been relocated. So a lot of you who are like, wow, Nolan's face looks a lot brighter. It's because I'm actually facing the lake now, which is great. So Mike, I'm happy to be, that with the new arena or the new setup that you're the first guest. And as we talked about, 24 years with Wells Fargo and then opening an agency in February of last year. Tell us about, that history. What made you want to do that?
Yeah. So well, probably a little bit different than maybe everybody that's on the call, but we all have our own paths here. But yeah, I got in the corporate world with Wells Fargo and worked my way up. I was with the home mortgage group and had various leadership roles. Worked my way up to senior leadership. Relocated from Washington State down to Oregon, and then also spent time down in California for a period of time. COVID hit, and then we were able to work remotely. And then obviously with Wells Fargo, it's a national company, been in the news, and they've had a lot of senior leadership changes, philosophy changes. And so there was just a time to where it was like, you know what, it just was a good time to make an adjustment. And I had some friends that had gotten into the insurance world back in the 2008, 2009 timeframe. So as they saw me, kind of looking on LinkedIn, they reached out to me and said, hey, you would be good at this. This is something that you'd have a good opportunity to be successful. And with my positioning, with my resources that I had within the mortgage industry, both in Oregon, Washington, and also California, I also supported the Nevada market. So that's kind of like the range of where I had some, I would say, like centers of influence. And so I was like, you know what, this is a great opportunity to really start my foundation. So I opened up my own insurance agency and learning the ropes. And then I was like, I need to expand. And so that's where IdealTraits came into the picture. I looked at a few other ideas there, but IdealTraits was really for a first time business owner. I've done tons of hiring in the past, but to have that kind of HR recruiting person that was kind of in front to be that stage one within the hiring process was very helpful. And so that's where I took advantage of IdealTraits.
Absolutely. And I mean, I was going to say that, right, where it's like 24 years with Wells Fargo. I'm sure obviously brought a lot of that experience to the agency today, but then over the last year and a half of being an agency owner, I'm sure there's been a lot of firsts too, right?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of functions within IdealTraits. I do think that what we're all looking to do is hire, I think, good quality people, but then there's also skill sets that of roles of what you're looking for. And I think how IdealTraits sets it up, it appealed to me to where it's like, no, I can really kind of pinpoint some of the characteristics I'm looking for the position I'm trying to fill.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Right. Kind of just allows you to have, a different perspective in a couple of different ways, right? With the, sort of with the VHA program that you sort of alluded to with the assessment, right? Sort of bringing about more of that logical perspective to what can be super emotional, as we've talked about before. But, Mike, like we talked about yesterday, I think one of the cool things about, the guests that we've had on Success Spotlight is some of them have had 60, 70 employees. Others have had 30, 40, or some are similar to yourself, where they're newer agents who maybe just have a handful of employees, right? So, as I mentioned, hired your first employee back there on October 1st. We talked yesterday about, how things are going, getting in licensing and things of that nature. But stepping aside from that, how did you know, like, that it was your time that you needed to hire and that you needed to bring somebody on? How did you get to that
Well,
point?
yeah, at first it was like I needed to get my foundation within my business itself, and as I got busy and was supporting my clients, it's like I need to I when I first started, let me backtrack. When I first started, I had a business plan of what I wanted to be after 3 years and after 5 years, and it's like, okay, this is where I do want to grow. I had that vision, but first I had to lay the foundation and the work in place to say, okay, I need to make sure that when I bring somebody on, that they're going to be in a successful position. And so it
Mhm.
was one of those things to where we're busy with regards to the number of volume of accounts that are coming in with different leads, with like my centers of influence and resources that are coming in, and it's like I can add additional value that's there. And so from a um, with insurance, trying to go after the renewals and just building up your entire book of business, that was something that I was really looking at trying to get a jump start, I guess, and play the long game. So I know that right now I'm not trying to be like from a profitability standpoint. My whole goal is that after 12 months I'm breaking even with my hire is the way I penciled it out with regards to recruiting budgets, salaries, commission. The way I'm salary structured. That's where I'm looking at with regards to the commissions. Is if I'm breaking even after year one and then year two is all profitable.
Mhm.
I'm looking to make sure that. That this is successful. I've already talked with my virtual hiring assistant to where this isn't going to be the last hire as well. This is something that is going to be an ongoing process. So we're probably going to be circling back in maybe 3-4 months once
Mhm.
they are up and running, so that basically from a time management standpoint, I can be dedicated to the one that I'm bringing on, and so I can onboard them properly.
Yeah, I mean, that's fantastic. I love the way that you're thinking about it. I mean, I think it's something that, obviously, I don't even think we've talked about it on this program, where it's like, what does that first year look like? Right. And obviously mapping it out, breaking even, and then everything else is bankroll, right?
Mhm.
When you come to the point where, your retention is at the certain percentage that it's at, obviously you're bankrolling those renewals for not just a year, right? For years to come, oftentimes, right? And then of course it's, in the insurance industry, it's all about just maximizing that process, right? So you start with one, and then you get to three, and then you get to six, and then you get to nine, right? And you continue that cycle. I mean, that's great. All right. And then, October 1st, but obviously getting to the point where you needed to hire that person, how long from when you decided, all right, I need to hire, and of course when you started your Ideal Traits account, did you, how long did it take you to find that person? I mean, Oregon is traditionally a difficult state to recruit in, right?
Yeah,
It's just
so I will say this, and I actually think I saw Faith on here, so she may like laugh at this, but I
yeah.
found a person that I felt like was going to be a we interviewed them, and so I started this process back in April and May, and then I found someone through the interview in June, and they were going to start off on July 1st. They came into the office afterwards to where it was like, and they were asking for stuff that was just not. They were asking for sign-on bonus or per diem stuff, and it's just like this is not what we agreed to initially. So there was a cultural thing that somehow got off track, and I just said this is not going to be a good fit for us right there. And so I was quick to like let go because it is my agency. I wasn't going to spend. I just had that. Nope, there's too many red flags at this point. And so
Sure.
I was like, you know what? I need to make sure I'm hiring the right person.
Hmm.
So I took a step back, took about 3 weeks off, reached back out to Faith, and it was like, okay, we're starting this back up. We created the ad, and then we had people that were coming in. The I you guys probably know this more than I, but I know that like the percentage of people that would click on the ads and apply and those pull through rates, they were always talking about how good that the ad was running there. So that was always encouraging to be able to go over those numbers. But we probably took about a month to get candidates in. And then go through what I had as an interview process, and it was a two-step interview process that I had with my client, and then we did the offer, and then we set up the start date for the 1st of October.
That's excellent. Yeah, I'm looking at the account now, and it looks like you had 2 job ads posted. One was posted in May, received 82 applications, and then the next one was posted in August, received 52 applications, right? So usually, obviously for all of you that are on here today, we like to share those numbers, right? Because it's like maybe you're getting less or maybe you're getting more, and your question might be, how do I get more applicants? But looking at that analytics report, Mike, it sounds like you guys were sponsoring your job ad too as well. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay.
I have a marketing budget that I penciled out. Again, I'm a very strategic, focused type person to where with like it's like I had this stuff planned out. So budget wise, I knew that this was an investment that I wanted to spend the money for the annual membership, but also pay for the virtual hiring assistant. But also, if I'm already putting that kind of money in, why am I not going to also promote the ad as well? And that
Mhm.
was, 50 or $100. It wasn't too much, but that was still all allocated into my annual hiring budget that I have as a business owner. And so that was something that I just pulled from and used that. But that seemed to be successful. We were always talking about, what were the successes. One of the things, and I don't know if I'm jumping ahead here or not, but Faith and I, we set up a weekly calls to where it was like, this is a scheduled call at X time, I think it was like 8:30 on a Friday morning, but I had a dedicated half hour to where we're reviewing all the applicants that came in that week. What did I see? What did she see? We looked at resumes, we looked at what their interviews were, and we looked at what their assessments were. And so you can kind of stack rank all those different things that were there and what were our initial opinions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, one of the things that I will say, Mike, that I'm so happy you said is that you have a budget. That it's literally like, I've been working for Ideal Traits for almost 7 years now. And the amount of times that I've had an agency tell me that they have a budget is very few and far between, right? And again, as we sort of get closer to the end of the year, it's a really good thing for those of you that are listening to do if you haven't done it already. Put together your budget for 2026, see what you can invest into your recruiting process. Because, Mike, from what you had said, it sounds like that second go around, you guys were able to interview candidates, have someone hired in like a month and a half, 2 months. Does that sound about right?
Exactly, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, like for those of you that are listening with us here today, think about over the last couple of months, maybe you've been struggling or maybe seeing some success here, some not success here, right? Subscribing to that virtual hiring assistant program has things happen faster, right? Because we take over the communication. But then also too, which we'll talk about, that sponsoring of the job ad just gets applicants to your ad so much faster, and it supercharges that time frame, right? So maybe you're sitting in a position to you're like, man, I really need somebody hired by the end of the year, right? Bringing them in sooner is going to help you instead of hurt you. So I did put in the Q&A section, I did put the promotion to the Indeed promotion for new users. So if you've never created an Indeed account before and you're like, that sponsoring sounds kind of nice, right? You can create an account through Ideal Traits by following the steps in the link. And then Indeed is going to give you a $100 credit that you can use to sponsor your job ads through Ideal Traits. So again, that link is there. Go into the Q&A section, use it, but then also don't forget that we take audience questions too. So use the Q&A section to ask your questions there as well. But sorry, Mike, kind of just wanted to solidify those
No,
things, right?
absolutely.
That's some good info. Did you take advantage of that promotion too, or no?
I don't believe I honestly, I do not know if I took advantage of that promotion or not.
No.
I'd have to go back and look. I know it was very easy to set up when we with regards to the Ideal Traits,
Yeah.
with the sponsorship, walking through with my virtually hiring assistant. It was very easy though.
Yeah, no, I got you. All right, very cool. All right, so we've talked about the virtual hiring assistant program a little bit, so let's just dive right into that, right? So, of course, they create the job ads for you, but then you've got to provide some information first, right? So, talk a little bit about that process if you could.
Yeah. So with that process, there was a peer of mine that had used Ideal Traits, and that's what gave me like that warm introduction. Also, that's something that yeah, I've also done referrals out to where you guys give us a small little compensation back for referrals, which is very good and appreciated. So I thank you for that. But
Mhm.
that being said, is we took their job ad and it's like, well, why reinvent the wheel? So we took that and it was basically 90% there. And it's like, I like that. I like that. Let's eliminate this and let's add this portion. So we were able to get an ad posted. I want to say it took me like 10 minutes of my time because we were able to, like I said, not reinvent the wheels, which for me as an independent person to where it was like all I'm doing all the selling, all the legwork there, having you guys as a resource to be able to do a lot of that work. I'm paying you guys the money to help, right? Let you guys do that work. So
I mean, that's true, right? And a lot of folks don't think about it because the program, of course, is $5.99 a month, right? I mean, shoot, Mike. I mean, you spend 6 hours in your recruiting, that already costs more than $600, right?
that
I
is
mean,
correct. Yeah.
and that's in a monthly time frame. So, of course, that creation of the job ad is super helpful. But then, so you've got the job ad created, you've got it sponsored, applicants start coming in the bunches, right? As we had covered. So then, obviously, in terms of the reach out, that was something that we were helping you with too. So, how helpful was that, right? Like getting more assessments and getting more video interviews complete. Talk a little bit about that process too.
That was extremely helpful. I didn't have to reach out to anybody that I didn't want to like just help, right there. So you guys were on top of it. You guys were, like within 24, 48 hours, they're sending out emails, they're sending out the calls, and then you can actually follow along and say, that the VH was like completed, or it was like all of a sudden you see these successes that are coming in, and that's where those weekly calls were good too. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
did you follow up with Susie, or did you follow up with Johnny? And it was like, no, we're still making phone calls, or this is what the last conversation was. And then it was like, well, can you send them back out a new assessment or a new uh, candidate interview because that didn't come across maybe or in. So it's like, they completed it, but it didn't upload properly. So then they would reach out, and they were very proactive on this. And so I was very pleased with that level of service.
Mhm. 7 days a week,
Yeah.
right? They're calling 7 days a week. I think the last thing that anybody wants to do, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, Mike, is spend their Sundays calling candidates, right?
Yeah.
Instead, we'll do that for you, right? So, nonetheless, all right, cool. So the candidates, they complete the assessment, they complete the video interview, then the candidates get sent back to you, right? That's generally how the process is going to work. Now, again, we talked about it, like 80 applicants on the one, 50 applicants on the other. I'm would find it hard to believe that all of those candidates were qualified and all of them made it through the process, right? That's just the reality of how it works. But, walk me through your evaluation process. I know we've talked a little bit about, your consultations with Faith, but sort of walk us through, in terms of the quality of applicant, what were you looking for? And, what were you looking for, I guess, as thumbs up? And then what were some things that maybe you would have given a thumbs down to, if that makes
So I
sense?
was looking at resumes. I'm still old school, I guess, in the thing of like if I saw a lot of resumes that had misspellings or typos and different things of that nature, did they really take the time to go through that? So those are little things that like bug me. So it's just like but I would every morning I'd come in and I'm usually an early riser into the office. So it was just part of my routine for about 15 minutes. I'd pull up the Ideal Traits account, look at it and say, okay, who's the new people that have applied? You're getting email notifications of when things are coming in, but I pull up their resume. What did it look like? Is it someone that was brand new? Have they been in the industry? Have they had any sales background? And I was looking for a salesperson. I wasn't looking for a customer service rep. And there were some that were maybe more in line with that, but it was just at this stage, that's what I was hiring for. But it was just like, okay, what am I looking for? What are their history? What are their strengths? And a resume can tell you stuff, but it doesn't tell you as much, but it just can, you can weed out a few. But then you would also get the assessment and the video interview. And on the video interview, I was told, and I definitely agree with this. listen to their answers, and you can have them answer up to like 5 questions. And it's like maybe a minute. Sometimes they'll take up to 2 minutes. If someone only gives you like a 1 word answer or three sentence or three word answer, it's not that informative. How are they going to really sell themselves? And so you really got a notice of your people. So I watched the interviews at least 2 times, one with my eyes closed, just to listen. If they were calling me as a client or a prospective business owner or whatever, would they be someone that I would want to listen to? How does it come across? And then the second one is, okay, then how are they presenting themselves in this? Are they doing this while they're cooking their their spaghetti dinner? Or did they actually sit down and like put some thought into their answers? It kind of gives you a little bit. Is it important to them? And so that you can get some feedback from their answers on not only what they said, but then how did they prepare for it?
Sure. No,
And so,
absolutely.
those were things that I would take in. And again, it was on me to hire, but those are conversations that I would be able to still have with the virtual hiring assistant. What do you like here? What do you like here? And then there would be like maybe 7, 10 different good candidates that were there. And then it's like, okay, well, what was their strengths? Well, this one was persistent, or this one was consistent. This one was a sales leader or a salesperson. And so then you can kind of like put them into this one category, and then another one. A lot of them was like, they're actually in this category. And then what was great about the Faith was that she would actually break down the numbers of like, this is what they scored here. This is why they're low here. They're high here. This is why, and so you're getting a little bit more of that behind the scenes of kind of the makeup of it. Now, that didn't drive my decision in the end, but it did lead me in a good direction.
Absolutely. Man, and it seems like a very, you had mentioned strategic earlier. I would say thorough, right? Like
Yeah.
not skipping steps. You're not rushing the process. You're making sure that you go through these steps to really honestly just protect yourself, right? Because if you
Mhm.
rush that or if you skip those steps, like so many of us have the, really the like the want to do so, then at that point it puts you in a very vulnerable position, right? So making sure that they complete that assessment, complete that video interview, make sure that you're consulting with Faith on it. And then, Mike, let's talk about what happens next. Because once they complete the video interview, do you bring them into the office? Is it a
Yeah,
virtual interview? What do you do
Yeah,
next?
so what I did was I would reach out to them, and this is where now I'm taking the lead. And I had Ideal Traits doing a lot of the pre-work there. At this point, it's like, okay, now I've got my candidate pool. I'll reach out to them, schedule an in-face meeting with them here in my office. I actually gave each of my candidates like an appointment setting script that I use with one of my sales coaches as well, that we had to like, hey, I want you to practice this. I want you to read. And I told the candidate this, I'm going to ask you, about 5 or 6 different questions. We'll go over your resume, talk about the position, but I'm also going to do some role playing with you. And so I want you to write this down, read it out loud, and whether it's 4 or 5 times, and then come in, and we're going to role play how you would set an appointment to make, to have a review for your insurance needs.
Yeah.
And so I would then role play with them. And so that was a good, because that was also a great way more to tell me, one, did they follow directions? Did they take it seriously? Did they, even if they weren't perfect, I wasn't planning on them being perfect. I just wanted to put a task out there to see, would they, do something that I asked them to do in this realm, because this is my expectations and really what I want for my agency from a culture standpoint to be following, so that we're all talking kind of in the same tongue, so to speak. So that's where I was looking at there. And then after the person I met, then I was like, okay, then I had him meet with, it was going to be him or her, but had him meet with one of our other agents, district leaders. And it's like, hey, do you want to take a look at this person that I have here? And so we did a virtual meeting with the 3 of us there, and went over some questions, and then we went forward and I extended an offer.
Excellent. Do you remember what the assessment result was?
On this one, I want to say that this one was, I want to say persistent.
Oh man,
Yeah,
that's exactly what we
yeah,
wanted to hear.
yeah,
Mike, a little bit of a running joke that I
yeah.
have again after 21 times of hosting this and also on the assessment workshops too. I always say that the persistent is the best personality. I'm sure you can imagine why.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a great hire then. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that, Mike. So congratulations to you
Yeah.
there, right? The
Yeah.
persistent again, hard to
And
hard to find 2%, but really good stuff. But yeah,
and
sorry, go ahead.
and I will say just kind of a little background on this one. And on my next hire, I may do things slightly a little bit different, but
Yeah.
on this one here, we're going to see how it goes. But I went outside of the insurance industry. They are not licensed, and we set that up to where they're going to get a bonus after they pass their exam, and then if they don't, I'll let them go. But that's what their focus is here in this, next 30, 60 days here. And so that was all set up with the right, expectations. But this one, he was a person that worked as a beer distributor for like 10 years and did a lot of different functions and met with a lot of people, was good with that portion. But there's going to be things that have to be polished. But from my what I was also looking at from a years of hiring people is work ethic, and those that are they coachable and trainable in that area. I felt like I could coach them the product there, but I can't really coach the work ethic in that person. And I feel like if I got a good solid worker, then that's someone that is going to be successful. And so that's why I'm excited about seeing what the successes of what my new hire will be.
Yeah, it's excellent. Yeah, excited to hear about how well he does once, of course, that license comes through, right? But all right, so we've gone through the interview now. First day, of course, was October 1st, but you had just described it a little bit, like going through the licensing program, right? Do you have him doing anything in the office now, any calling or anything, or is it just studying for the exam?
No, I actually have him exclusively. His main job is to get the license. If he doesn't get the license, then I will let him go there. But I need him to do that, and that's the number one focus.
Of course. All right, cool. And obviously being a strategic guy, Mike, I'm sure you put some parameters around what your expectation is going to be once he does get licensed, right?
That
Um,
is yeah, that is correct. Like we'll have different objectives that we need to be able to do. Obviously, there's going to be some onboarding and some training with some internal systems of record and some different things of that nature. But then it's like, okay, this is what our gradual steps. Obviously, I think you need to be um, fair and like make like smart objectives, that are there. And I always believe too, like from a just a coaching standpoint, managing standpoint of the kind of like I called positive, negative, positive, standpoint. It's like, okay, you did this well. This is where we need to work on, and then finish up with something that's positive. And but look for success. At the end of the day, though, we do. I've always been a big believer of having big goals. Just because if you fall just a little bit short, you're still going to be successful. So I'm going to have high expectations when he is on board and selling.
yeah, I'm reading the Science of Scaling right now. Like, I don't know if you've ever heard of that one,
Have not, no.
but it talks about impossible goals, which is
Oh,
something that my team is all involved in right now, right? Setting the goals like so far to where you feel as if they're impossible, to where you're forced to think differently in order to get things accomplished, right? Probably doesn't work for everybody, but that's just maybe what I thought of when you had said like big goals. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Well, I
Like,
and I will say I'm a little corny when it comes to this. Like I've got a daughter, so I've got the dad sayings, but impossible means impossible. So
oh, sure.
that's my mentality there.
Yeah, yeah. I see Corey. He just joined actually. That's he's one of my sales team leads. He knows all about the impossible goal. He's going through it now, which is good. All right, very cool. So, any I mean, I know you talked about the licensing, Mike. Do you have them working remotely at all? Where's the remote flexibility at, or are they all? Or is it strictly in office?
Yeah, so in my office setting, it was advertised this way, but it was going to be advertised as hybrid. They'll be in the office, but then they'll have the flexibility of being out in the community. I was looking for someone that was. I know you mentioned earlier I'm in Gresham, Oregon. I want someone that was going to be on and that's in the east side of Portland for those that aren't aware of that. But I want someone that was going to be in the community, having a good brand and representing me. So, I wanted them to be active in the schools or the local chamber of commerce there. So there's going to be some times where they're outside of the office, going to different meetings or supporting different activities, maybe meeting clients, meeting business owners. So that is something that I'm going to encourage and what I hired it on as and advertise. But that's
Yeah. I mean, I would think that would be something that would be, at least specific to the candidate that you ended up getting, Mike. Because I mean, they were a beer distributor right there, so they're driving all around, meeting with, obviously clients, restaurants, bars, these types of things, right? And then you just do a complete 180 and have them sit at a desk for 10 hours a day. Probably going to get a little antsy, right? But
Yeah, exactly. That just wouldn't work with the way the culture would be with that person there. So this is where you have to find the right fit for you, but then you also have to be the right fit for them. And that's what I talked about with regards to the interview process is, as we went through this is like, this is more of like almost a date in the sense of like, is this something that I want you to work with me, but are you going to want to work for me? Are you going to how am I relaying to you? And so it is I don't want to say a partnership because I'm still the agency owner, but at the same time it is a team effort.
yeah, 100%. All right. The big question that we normally get to towards the end is all about compensation. So
Mhm.
tell us kind of what went into your compensation plan, as comfortable as you're comfortable with getting, right? But when you were working to put it together, again, being more of a strategic thinker, and we
Yeah.
talked a little bit of it, like making sure that you break even after that first year, right? Which is great. But when you were putting together the package, how did you make it so it benefits you and it's attractive to them?
Yeah, so I think that was important, and asked a lot of senior people that were within my company to say, like, what do you guys do? What is your type of compensation? And some would be, strictly, commission only, strictly salary and all that. And then there was one that what he was like, I pay them a salary, an hourly wage plus commission. And then there's a few bonuses depending on where we're at, like on our grid or matrix, that falls into that category. So I end up doing a combination of like an hourly rate with a commission based off of their first year of sales or first period of sales.
Perfect.
And then there's also additional bonuses depending on what the agency overall accomplishes. And so those things were also built into there. And so we went through some, I don't want to say role playing exercises, but some like, hey, hypotheticals. If you did this, this is the type of amount of like units and premium sold and our average premium. This is what your compensation would be. This is what your compensation would be, here. And then one thing that I'm sure most of you guys are aware of on the website with Ideal Traits, you guys have that return on your investment calculator, so you
Mhm.
can kind of play in there. I'd throw in, what if they fell into this type of category and they were doing this type of product and what my average premium is for both home and auto, what would that look like? And so I was able to feel comfortable of saying, okay, I know that I'm going to be maybe a little bit in the red in months 3, 4, or whatever the case is. But do you see what it's going to be at the end of year one, and what's it going to look like at the end of year two? Now all of a sudden, if I'm in the green there, that's like okay, I'm willing to do that. And then it's like if as long as I hit that break even point, now I'm looking at hiring candidate 2, candidate 3, and we can also learn from mistakes and then learn as we go.
Sure. For sure. Absolutely. That again, really great. And I love that. We've heard that before a little bit differently, where the agency owner it would ask the candidate what they want to make, and then they would say, something egregious like 180,000, right? And they'd be like, okay, this is what it takes to make 180, right? And then they'd be like, oh, okay, maybe 100, right? And they'd be like, here you go, and then it makes it a little bit more reasonable for the first year, I suppose, as we all know, right? But a really good way to go about it is just showing them the numbers. Being incredibly transparent, right, is important. I think that's the key word and the key action there. It's just being transparent, right? Letting them know what to expect, and obviously, then there's no surprises, right?
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
but really good. So cool. And I think Mike mentioned this earlier, but we do have a referral program at Ideal Traits, and you do receive, I believe it's a $20 Amazon gift card each time, right? So if you send over 5 people, then you'll get $100 sent to you, and they get sent out each Friday. So give yourself a little Halloween treat. Send us over some referrals. Feel free to reach out to whoever you are closely connected to with at Ideal Traits, for those of you listening. And then in addition to that, the Q&A section, if any of you guys do have questions, we'll wrap up here in just a second. But Mike, the same question that we ask every guest is just one thing, right? I know recruiting involves a lot of different dimensions and a lot of different things, but specifically one thing that you would recommend to someone who's looking to sort of start their recruiting process today, what would you say is probably the most important for you, that you wouldn't miss or that you wouldn't go without next time?
Um, so on that one there, I would just say that to me, like the time expectation, while it was, I would say, efficient, it was one that, it's still, still have to have people apply, come in, do the interview and all that type of stuff. So really look at it from a 2 month commitment at a minimum, maybe three, um, for the virtual hiring assistant. If you're just trying to go and use that portion for 30 days, you're going to be in a situation to where that's not going to be feasible, I would say.
Yep. Outstanding. Well, Mike, we really appreciate your time. And again, you fall perfectly into the line with the other 20 guests that we've had on Success Spotlight, in the fact that you didn't necessarily do anything out of this world that people can't start implementing today. Right.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yep. Yep. You put together a plan, you stuck to the plan, you made sure to allocate resources where needed, whether it was sponsoring your job ad or doing the virtual hiring assistant program, just using IdealTraits in general, having some help with your interviewing process, right? These are all things and resources that are available, one within IdealTraits, but then also some things outside of it too as well. So I would encourage all of you that have been listening. This is the same process that you can duplicate. Maybe not necessarily the whole thing, because some things Mike does won't necessarily work exactly the same for you, right? But process, having a plan, having a budget, sticking to it, getting help where you need it, those are all things that you can do today. And with that, again, Mike, what was it? Month and a half, you had somebody hired, right?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah.
So for those of you that are listening, it's October 29th, almost the beginning of November. You can have someone hired by the end of this year. You just have to put your plan in place, create your budget, and then we can make it happen for you. Like, come to us. We're your partners in this. That's why IdealTraits is here. That's why we do sessions just like this, right? But Mike, again, incredibly, appreciative for you. Again, spending about an hour and a half in total preparing for this and doing this and sharing your, I guess, experience, right, of being able to hire and bringing your knowledge, not only 24 years with Wells Fargo, but then also in the last year and a half as an agency owner, right? I know that there's a lot of things that you could be doing, but I appreciate you obviously spending that time here with us. So anything else, Mike, that you'd like to point to before we sign off here?
Yeah, I would just say the last thing I would say is that my long term is still to continue to have ideal traits, even if my employees like working out, because I'll be adding to staff. But if, let's say, my employee all of a sudden just decides to leave my agency, go off on his own, I'll have the ideal traits account and set up to where it'll be that easy to just call them up, set up the virtual hiring assistant, and I can get a job posted within a day or two, and we can start that recruiting process to fill. So it's almost like a quasi insurance policy for my entire staffing management needs. And so to me, that's where there's value add even in the future.
Yeah, 100%. 100%, right? An insurance plan for your insurance agency, as we like to say. Not as much anymore, right? Just like when people used to call in IdealTraits, it used to be a requirement to say it's an ideal day at IdealTraits. I don't think that happens much anymore. But nonetheless, both of those things are both still very much true. So thank you again, Mike. I have one favor to ask our audience too as well. So my girlfriend, one of the things, Sarah, she's the best. She's been insisting that I get an Apple Watch. Sorry, I'm struggling with showing it here, which I did, but I want to practice it out, right? And again, we've been doing this for our 21st time, and I see some familiar faces on here, right? Like I see you, Joe Winslow. Good to see you again, my friend. Hope everything's okay in Texas or Nevada, wherever you're at. We see Keegan's on here, Michelle Hunley, a lot of people that consistently come. And what I'm asking from all of you today, for all of you that are participating, is if you could take just a couple of minutes out of your time to send me an email with some feedback, whether it's just on this Success Spotlight session or maybe some past ones, some questions that you would like to see folded in, maybe some difference. Again, we've been doing it for a long time, and the last thing I want to do is sort of just get into this habit, right, of doing it the same way just because that's the way we've been doing it. So if you could, for all of you that are on there, my email is just nolan@idealtraits.com. send some feedback today. Let me know the good things and maybe some things that you'd like to see improve in these sessions. But that's the one thing I ask. All right. So thank you all again for taking time out of your afternoon. Mike, you especially. Thank you again for being our guest. I appreciate it. I hope everyone has a great end to October. Just a couple of days left. So let's make sure that we do our best to punch everything in that we can, and then have a great end to the year. And we'll see you back in November. All right. Thanks again, Mike. We'll see you guys.
Yep.